Concern for the person is at the core, and it expresses itself in the quality of relationships in our schools and in the commitment to the most rounded development of our students. We understand the person as created in the image of Jesus Christ. He is God's self-revelation and the model of human living. We are gifted through him with an everlasting destiny. It is for this reason that the study of religion as a theological enterprise must play a crucial role at the heart of the curriculum in Jesuit schools. I know someone who is a professor of philosophy in New York. He was a professor of philosophy. He's already retired in New York State University. And he told me, because this is a state university from the Rockefeller Foundation, many of our students are not Catholic, not believers, let's say, not traditional believers. So we have a lot of communists, we have a lot of people coming from abroad with scholarships and so forth, and we have people from all kinds of groups in American society. And then he told me, those who have no faith have a very hard time to learn philosophy. He said, I much prefer to have a communist in the classroom, but convinced, because with him you can enter into a dialogue. He has points of reference. But if a young man or a young woman come without any faith, they have no reference, nothing to criticize, nothing to compare, nothing to move from. No? So the point here is that Jesuit education, because it's based on something very deep, it offers the opportunity of freedom, the opportunity to be critical, the opportunity to be creative, the opportunity to move. But if we are not moving anywhere, then we are just turning around ourselves. Faith is not incompatible with reason, even if some commentators would like to put them in opposition. Faith is not just about pious feelings or nice prayers. There is an important rational underpinning, but also there is an important human rooting of the person. I have used this argument to explain to Japanese non-Christians married to Filipino or other migrants who are Christians, why it is good to baptize their children. I have explained it like this. We want to give them a point of reference in their life, and they understand it right away. So every time we had an opportunity to explain that, they all accepted. They say, yeah, that makes sense, because they themselves have been floating without reference in their lives. That is our stance, and we want to pass this on to our intelligent, questioning, modern students in the face of criticism that would present faith as outmoded and sentimental. I ask all involved in religious education in the Jesuit schools in Ireland to ensure the intellectual quality of what we offer, and I ask principals to ensure that religious education is timetabled in the curriculum in an important way, and to support teachers in this particularly challenging subject. Inspired in the words of the letter of St. Peter, where he says, reverence Christ in your hearts as Lord, and always be ready to give answer to anyone who asks the reason for the hope which is in you. So a Christian should be able to always be able to respond. When somebody asks, why are you a Christian? Why do you have hope in this world that is so strange? We should always be able to say, to explain why. And not simply rationally, but to explain why from the heart, from the center of our lives. And that's where education helps us to make sense of our whole life. You will be aware of the pressing need for such readiness to articulate the hope which informs our faith at a time when public discourse in Ireland tends to be dominated by very different voices. Can students from Jesuit schools be equipped and motivated to take an active and courageous part in such discourse? Can we help them? This would reflect the classical tradition of rhetoric and public advocacy which so strongly influenced Ignatius and his first companions when they studied in Paris, and which is enshrined in the Society's founding educational document, the Ratio Studiorum of 1599, in which Ignatius, and when he speaks about the education of the society, he speaks of the modo parisino, the way of Paris, which is a dialogical questioning form that educates imagination and critical sense and so forth. And I can tell you, I have a friend who is he's in a high position in an electronics company. I don't tell you the name of the company because you could find him. No? And he tells me, we are very worried in the company because the new recruits have no imagination and no creativity. They are the product of a system of education that is memory, and then science, calculations, and so forth. So they come now to the company, and they already have a nickname for them. We call them the people of the manual. If they have a manual, like when you buy a computer, you get a manual with a computer and say, how do I get into internet? Then you read it and you push the button. If they have a manual, they function very well. But the moment they are left on their own, they don't know what to do. They are at a loss. So we are very concerned because in the future, are we going to leave this company in the hands of a group of people who have no creativity? Then what is the future of this company? So this is education. And that's why Christianity is so imaginative and so creative. And our education is precisely like you have here, music and drama and science and experiments, everything. The whole person has to be involved in the education process. We had a Buddhist teacher in one of our schools who caught it beautifully. He was a Buddhist and convinced Buddhist, but he went to that school because he had studied education in school, and he found that Buddhism doesn't have a philosophy of education, but the Jesuits have. So he saw that in the university. So he said, I want to teach in a Jesuit school. So he applied, and he was accepted, and he was very happy. Sorry that there were too many Jesuits at the time. They did everything, so he couldn't contribute that much. But as the Jesuits became less and less, he got more and more responsibilities, and he was delighted. And at one point, another Buddhist got into the school, another professor. Well, only 20% of the teachers in our schools are Catholic. Only 20%. 80% are from different groups. But anyway, this young professor was from a very militant Buddhist sect, a bit anti-Christian, kind of. So he entered. He didn't say that he belonged to that sect. And he was accepted because he was qualified and so forth. And soon after he was in the school, he began to criticize everything. Oh, this school is too Christian. They are imposing on the children Christianity, especially to have a chapel in the school. That doesn't make sense. This is indoctrination. This is so all the time. So all the other teachers were telling him, please go to another school. You don't belong here. No? But he wouldn't listen. He said, no, I have a right to be here because I was accepted. And so then the teachers turned to this older Buddhist professor. I said, please, can you help? Because he's not happy and he's making all of us very unhappy. So this older Buddhist got the young Buddhist and said, young man, you don't understand where you are. You complain about the chapel. Look, in this school, the moment you enter the gate, everything is chapel. Everything. Sports, theater, experiments, even with onions, like I saw before. So everything is chapel. Everything is part of the growth of a person. Everything is important. This is extremely important in Jesuit education. It's the whole person. We don't want people with a head like this, or legs like this because they are good runners. We want balanced people. People who can understand reality, who can relate with other people, who can contribute, who can create. Yes.